This card don't read so good. Wake up. This card in the set. What the hell is this? Best in show. All right, what's up, friends? Welcome. Complete set review for Edge of Eternities. We did white, we did blue, we did black. Now we're doing red. You missed those, go watch them on YouTube, and please support the content. Please take that half second, leave a comment, leave a like on each video. A ton of work goes into these. I spend 7 hours straight talking, all the prep works. Please support the content. Like y'all, go follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and stuff too, all right? That's great. So, we're gonna do red. We're going over all the cards in every color. And we are going over all the cards for limited and constructed, giving out the awards we often give out as we do for each color. I'll remind you about 10 new brews happening this coming Wednesday. It's July 23rd, 2 p.m., 10 new brews. I am pumped for 10 new brews for this set. Gonna be freaking awesome. So make sure you're there for that, and make sure you follow me and everything and hit all the buttons and do all the things, and let's rock and roll. So, starting out with Bombard. 3-mana instant, deal 4 to a creature. I believe this is a reprint. This is just a limited removal spell. I'm pretty good about that, but nothing more. Just good limited removal spell. Cut Propulsion. 3-mana for an instant. Target creature deals damage to itself equal to its power. And if a creature has flying, it deals twice that much damage to itself. Pretty interesting removal spell. This is like kind of similar to your average like 3-mana 5 damage instant spell we see in like every other set. In that it can kill larger creatures. It, of course, cannot kill things with larger toughness than power, unless they have flying. So, in constructed, I think this card is just worse than 5 damage spells, like Rebel Salvo. But this is a good limited removal spell. You know, it kills some stuff. It is certainly important to note the blind spots of this card. It is also important to note that it can kill larger creatures, so that if there's some big, dumb flying, 8/8 flyer it's seeing play, this can kill that, which is kind of cool, where red normally can't do that. Atraxa comes to mind, although it would gain 7 life, I guess. But, so kind of cool. Kill 6/6 demons, larger flyers. If that's the thing your red deck needs to do, then cool. But yeah, kind of a cool card. Kind of just one of those cards you have in your toolbox for constructed, and a card's going to be a good skill spell unlimited. Not too much more. Debris Field Crusher. 5 mana for a spacecraft. ETB, a lightning bolt something. Then it has Station. Of course, Station means that you tap creatures with sorcery speed at charge counters. When you hit a threshold, it turns on. So at 8 or more counters, this becomes a 1/5 flying spacecraft that has double fire breathing. 2 mana to pump for +2/+0. So, like a lot of these spacecrafts, 5 mana for a lightning bolt is kind of heavy. But the body it turns into is pretty good. But then again, 8 is also kind of heavy. So this card just seems kind of okay. I feel like at 4 mana or at like 6 or 7 station, this card would be a little more exciting. But probably still a reasonable limited card. Not too much more than that. But yeah, it's okay. Devastating Onslaught. This card's not going to win a normal award. This card's going to win the Doppelgang award for a silly card that people are going to tell me put in every deck that is really, really fun, but not actually that good. Red XX. Create X tokens that are copies of target creature or artifact you control. Those tokens gain haste, and then sacrifice them. So, yes, if you have 7 mana and a Terror of the Peaks or a Red Overlord in play, you can cast this, make a bunch of copies, and kill your opponent. Cool. If you don't have that or 7 mana or whatever, this card doesn't do a ton. So one of those like Doppelgang-esque high upside, expensive, pretty low downside card. If you just played a deck with, 4 red Overlord, 4 green Overlord, and this card, it's kind of interesting, honestly. Note also that it only targets one thing, and if they kill it in response, you get absolutely blown out. Whereas Doppelgang has the ability to target multiple things, so there's less of a safety valve here in that respect. So certainly a silly card, certainly a fun card. Gonna make for some insane moments in Limited. I can't wait to cast this card on Bronze and Mythic. But yeah, Fun card. I'm sure I'll play it at times on stream, but probably not the best card if your goal is simply to win the game. If your goal is to have fun, although
now this is pod racing.
You're all set and you're ready to go. In limited, this card seems pretty cool though. Casting it for 7 will probably end the game a lot of the time, so probably a cool card in limited. But yeah, this is a commander card. This is a fun casual card, which is great. That's cool. I'm glad that exists. Drill Too Deep. 2 mana for an instant. Shatter or put 5 charge counters on target spacecraft or planet you control. I mean, you don't really want to spend cards to crew your spacecraft. That's just not typically, I mean, it just 2 cards for 1 effect is not great. But having a Shatter buyout's kind of cool. This is probably a pretty reasonable limited card because the double modality of Shatter being pretty good in limited and then being able to surprise crew a spaceship and block is kind of cool. But I think this card is pretty suspect overall. Pretty fringe. A card to watch out for, but I wouldn't be too concerned about. Frontline War Rager. Kavu's return! I love a good Kavu, all right? I started playing around Invasion, so me and Kavus go way back. But 3 mana for a 2/3, common. End step, you control 2 or more tap creatures, put a counter on this creature. So the red-white limited mechanic is all about crewing. It's about stationing, if you will. Sorry. Tapping your things to, crew your spaceships and for other various effects, and then getting paid off for that. So this is a pretty decent one. This is the kind of card where if you just go 1-drop, 2-drop, attack with both and play this on turn 3 and have them both still in play, and this goes to a 3/4 immediately, that's pretty cool, Not an amazingly powerful card, but I think, again, an archetype, kind of staple. Wouldn't take it too high, but certainly playable in that deck in limited. Full Bore. 1 red instant. Target creature you control gets +3/+2, so almost a giant growth. And then if a creature was cast for its warp cost, it also gains trample and haste. This is a pretty cool card. So Infuriate, which is just, red giant growth, whatever, is not particularly good enough. This is not quite Monstrous Rage. Just gonna put that one out there, But the fact that this has this extra rider text of allowing you to haste your warp creatures. So warp's a mechanic where you pay a cheaper cost, creature comes in and then goes away at the end of turn to exile where you can cast it again. Giving haste for warp stuff is kind of awesome. There are 1 or 2 warp cards that natively have haste. They do seem quite powerful. And there are a lot of very large creatures you might cast for 2 or 3 mana for warping that all of a sudden this card goes from being giant growth to being like deal 7 damage for 1 mana, which is kind of cool, honestly. It's not a thing that I'd want to play a card for that only did that. So this being a giant growth all the time otherwise is pretty cool. But I like this card. I think this card's got, it's going to be a good card in limited. I think this is also a card that could see play constructed, where if there is some cool warp stuff happening, where you can utilize the pump spell, but also utilize this like surprise haste thing sometime. It gives trample too. That's kind of sweet. There's a 9/9 for warp 3 in the artifact section, and just like do the thing. There you go. It's 12 damage, which is kind of cool. So maybe a little too cute, but the floor of just being the card Infuriate, which has seen play in Standard before, is not crazy. This is cool. This is a fun design, pretty powerful card, and I wouldn't be surprised if it shows up. Galvanizing Saw Ship. 6 mana for a spacecraft. This has Station, does nothing when you play it at first, but has a really low cost on the station. It's the lowest station cost that you see basically anywhere. It's only 3. So this card, you can play it for 6, tap a 3-drop, pop it into the red zone, and get it for 6 flying in the air. Rorik's Bladewing.
Pointless nostalgia.
If your back hurts, that's pretty good. That's not too shabby, honestly. So this one's pretty nice. It's expensive, but it's a way to tap your stuff. Also important to note that even though you've stationed it and turned it into a creature, you still have the ability to tap things to it and overstation it for your tap synergy effects. So pretty good limited card. Expensive, but quite powerful and gonna cheese out a lot of games. Invasive Maneuvers. Get it? It's evasive, whatever. 2 mana for an instant. 3 damage to a creature. If you control a spacecraft, 5 damage. Great limited card. You know, just lightning strike for creatures is totally fine and limited. And then if you deal 5 for 2 mana, it's great. It's really all there is to it. You know, don't think spacecraft will be prevalent enough and constructed to want to play this card, but this is a great limited card. Kav Landseeker. 4 mana for a 4/3 Kavu Soldier. This is a common 4/3 menace. When it enters, make a lander token. Again, lander tokens are Wayfarer's Baubles. They are artifact tokens with 2 tap sack, get a basic land. However, the token will sacrifice at the beginning of the next end step. So you're getting a 4/3 for 4 with menace, which is kind of okay. A little bit of extra upside of a lander, which you can sacrifice for effects or a land, which is kind of cool. There is some landfall stuff happening in red-green, so that's cool. So you see that. And good common. Fine draft common. Not a high pick or anything probably, but... Kavorian Harrier. 1 red for a 2/1. Robot Soldier. Jackal Pup, eat your heart out. Oh, these poor Magic cards in the retirement home just like looking on like, whoa, I used to be the best 1-drop. 2/1 for 1 Robot Soldier, which is already pretty good. Just artifact Jackal Pup is pretty sweet. Whenever a creature attacks, you may pay 2. If you do, make a 2/2 colorless robot token, tapped and attacking, that you sacrifice at the end of combat. That's like kind of sweet, you know? So the floor on a 2/1 for 1 is already pretty high, and this thing can make extra attackers. You can sacrifice them for value. You can trigger Void. It does a lot of stuff. It's a pretty cool card for 1 mana. This card's nice, you know? Definitely a good limited card, but a card I wouldn't be like, you know, extremely surprised to make the jump into constructed. This card's pretty sweet. So yeah, cool card. Big fan. Kind of simple, but evocative and just cool stuff. I like it. Kavorian Skywarden. 5 mana for a 4/5 reach common. Void. Put a counter on this creature. Limited filler. You know, 4/5 reach for 5 is not great. If it's a 5/6 the turn you cast it, sure. But these common 5-drops, there's so many rares and mythics and uncommons in play boosters these days that like you just don't need a common in your 5-drop slot typically. If you're playing this card, it's not embarrassing, but I think you prefer to not be playing this card. Cavaron Turbo Drone. 3 mana for a 2/3 Robot Scout. Taps to give things haste at sorcery speed. So this card looks very bad compared to what we've seen in the past. Usually this card is a 2/2 for 2. Tap to give haste. However, it is set with Warp. Haste gains a whole new meaning, where now your Warp is giving you an extra shot with all of your Warp cards, which is pretty powerful, you know? That being said, a 2/3 for 3 is so much worse than a 2/2 for 2 that there's a pretty high bar here. But that's why it costs more. So probably still limited fillery, kind of unexciting. But it's kind of cool. It's a cool little card. Litho Breaking. 3 mana for an instant. Make a lander token. Then you may sacrifice an artifact. When you do, this deals 2 damage to each creature. So you can sack the lander token or sack any other artifact in Pyroclasm at instant speed. 3 mana instant speed Pyroclasm is pretty common. You see that effect pretty often. But this has the ability to sacrifice some other artifact and keep the lander token and then use it to ramp later. Or you can just, you know, in a matchup where you don't want Pyroclasm, just not sacrifice an artifact and make a lander token. You know, 5 mana ramp and growth, not so good. But this card's kind of cool, you know. Mostly just a Pyroclasm variant, but is what it is. Melded Moxite. Not quite a usual Mox, you know.
Still a piece of garbage.
2 mana for an artifact. ETB, discard a card, draw a card. Draw 2. See this card 1,000 times over and over again. However, this one's got 3 sack, make it 2/2. I mean, it's tapped also, so that's a pretty big downside. Given the fact that 2 mana artifact, ETB, discard 1, draw 2 is already borderline playable when you can like make use of the artifact for sacrifice fodder and so on and so forth. having this buyout to make a 3/3, I make a 2/2 is kind of cool. So this card's kind of sweet. You know, if you're doing graveyard stuff or you're doing you know, whatever kind of things like that, this can do that. So card's cool. You know, it's finicky. I think it's gonna be good in most of the spots where this effect is usually good, but it's a little extra upside, which is cool. It's also a void effect as well, which is cool. So it's cool. Memorial Team Leader. 4 mana for a 4/3 uncommon. During your turn, other creatures you control get +1/+0. It has Warp 2. Really good card to give haste to. But otherwise, just a good card. You know, you can play it as a cheap anthem at some point to push damage through, and then you can play it as a full cost creature later. Nothing super exciting, just a fine limited card. Memorial Vault. 4 mana for an artifact. Tap, sacrifice another artifact. Exile top X cards of your library. X is 1 plus the mana value of a sacrifice artifact. You may play those cards this turn. So a weird card in that the ceiling is pretty low on this, right? I sacrifice a Mirror Enforcer, you know, a 7 mana artifact. I exile top 8 cards. I only have 1 turn to play them, so you almost don't want to draw that many cards with this, right? Your ideal sacrifice is probably like, you know, a 2-drop, so you can look at 3 cards, you know? So this not being a draw is weird. It's going to play kind of awkward, and I don't think it's particularly great because the ceiling's so bad. So I think this card is pretty finicky. You know, a 4 mana artifact doesn't do anything until you cast it, and then might draw some cards later with help is like not really where you're at in Constructed. So yeah, and the timing restriction is pretty tough too. If it's just like tap a token, draw a card, sure, but yeah, I don't know. Seems kind of finicky. Totally fine and limited, where it's a void enabler and so on and so forth. But yeah, Constructed wise. Molecular Modifier. 2 mana for a 2/2. Beginning combat your turn, creature you control gets +1/+0 on first strike. Seems like a reasonable draft card. Buy is kind of small, doesn't block very well. These cards have played worse than they've looked in recent sets, where they used to be really good back in the day. So it might not be that good. But, you know, it seems like an okay aggressive card. It can target itself as well, so. Nebula Dragon. I don't have the faintest idea what is happening in this art. I could not tell you.
I bet you weren't expecting that one, God.
But it does look pretty cool. 7 mana for a 4/4 flyer, ETB Lightning Bolt. So this is like how expensive can they make a dragon ETB Lightning Bolt at common where it's still playable? This one's pretty expensive. That being said, if you are desperate for a way to win the game or a top end card, this card is reasonably powerful. You know, 4/4 flyer at bolts is kind of nice. So probably filler, but if you're doing some cool ramp stuff in red-green or whatever else, you know, maybe. But a lot of things you don't usually see here. Common Dragon, ETB Lightning Bolt, high cost. It's weird. It's almost surprising they use art this interesting on a common, but Nova Hellkite. Out here among the stars, there be dragons. We've got some sort of Nebula Dragon here. 5 mana for a 4/5 flying haste. ETB, it deals 1 damage to a creature an opponent controls. Okay. It also has Warp, and Warp plus haste equals a bingo.
Now this is pod racing.
This is 3 mana, deal 4 to your opponent, and maybe kill a 1 toughest creature, and then go in the adventure zone, ready to go again on turn 5 for another 4 power haste damage. Has that extra point toughness, which is kind of cool too. This card's good. I think this card kind of slaps. This is pretty nice, you know, and then if this ever kills a creature, you are so far above rate. It's not quite Goblin Chain Whirler, where it makes playing 1 toughness things like a non-starter, but if this card ends up being good, it's going to be much more difficult to play 1 mana creatures, you know. Well, I'm sorry, 1 toughness creatures, you know, for sure. Like, turn Llanowar Elf, dash this in, deal 4, kill your Llanowar Elf. Like, holy moly, right? So I think this card's great. It's a Windmill Slam Bomb and limited. And then in Constructive, this card's awesome. And that's not even, you know, counting the fact that you could maybe like blink it and scam it, or you could like do a bunch of other stuff or whatever else. So Warp has a lot of incidental synergy. Although haste does kind of build that synergy in, which is kind of cool. So Nova Hellkite, pretty big banger. And there also are some dragon things still around from the last set too. So pretty cool. Orbital, man. I've been doing good on the hard names, you know? Orbital Plunge. 4 mana for a sorcery at common. 6 to a creature. If XX damage was dealt, make a lander token. This card's kind of cool. You know, it'd be a lot better as an instant, obviously. But if you're playing a red deck, this is pretty close to a terminate. Making a land token is pretty cool as well. Yeah, this card's cool. Good limited rule spell. Not a super high pick, but this is nice. And again, red-green cares about ramping and some big stuff and some landfall stuff. So the goal with red-green and limited is to have the lander tokens be useful for more than just ramping and fixing for landfall stuff. So pretty cool. Oreplate Pagnolin. Bombin Common. 2 mana for a 2/2. Artifact creature, robot Pagnolin. Whenever another artifact you control enters, you may pay 1. If you do, put a counter on this creature.
On the machine!
That is really, really good. There's no cap here. You can just keep doing it over and over again. Lander tokens, other artifacts, whatever else. This is the kind of 2-drop that curves up really, really well. It scales. If you don't have good attacks, you can wait a turn, pump it a bigger next turn. It has counters for various counter synergies. I think this card is an absolute banger. It also plays well with itself. One of the things I mentioned a lot about these artifact synergy cards is if they're not actually an artifact, you get into this really weird spot where I have 8 awesome artifact payoffs, but because I have so many, I don't have enough artifacts, you know? So you run into this kind of balancing act. But when your payoff is also an artifact, a curve of turn 2 this, turn 3 this pump is insane. So I think this card is an absolute banger in limited. Might be good in Pauper, maybe. I don't know. That's not really my department. Play an artifact land, pay 1 and pump it immediately. But yeah, this card's a banger. Awesome, awesome limited card. I cannot wait to draft this card. Super awesome. Constructed, probably not, but really, really cool, well-designed draft card. Pain for All. I feel like a lot of our awards have been like at the same, very close, whatever, in the set, but whatever. Pain for All is our trap card here. And another high ceiling, very low floor card. 2 mana for an enchantment aura. You enchant a creature you control. When it enters, the enchanted creature deals damage equal to its power to any other target. Then whenever the enchanted creature is dealt damage, it reflects. So basically this is a 3 mana, put it on a creature and it bites, and then it has the Screaming Nemesis ability permanently. That is a decently high ceiling for a really low floor in 3 ways. So there are 3 big things that hold this card back. The first is, if your opponent is just not playing creatures, that sucks. Second is, if you go to cast this card to your creature and they kill it in response, that's also really bad. And then third is that it gives it the Screaming Nemesis ability. But what makes Screaming Nemesis so good is that the floor is really high. A 3/3 haste for 3 doesn't need to do that much more to be really, really good. Nemesis is absurd against decks that can't kill it directly, green decks and red decks, but has the, it's not as good against Nowhere to Run and Go for the Throat and kill spells that kill it directly. So if your opponent is playing those type of cards, that second effect doesn't really do anything. So there are so many caveats to what's happening here. And it's not even the full Nemesis ability. It's also only reflects to opponents, not players. So this card has such a laundry list of potential pitfalls, and the ceiling isn't even that high. Do not put this card in your deck, folks. If you want to play Commander and do some stupid combo with this card, like Blasphemous Act and kill each opponent, sure, have a wonderful time. If your goal is to win games of Magic, do not put this card in your deck if you're playing Constructed. And Limited is fine. They tap out, you play with, you kill their thing, whatever, if you have high power creatures. But for Constructive, this card is an absolute non-starter. Don't do it. All right, just don't do it. Trap card, 4 red, is Pain for All. Next up is Plasma Bolts. This card is great. Could have been the Bombin Common. We have 1 red for a Sorcery Speed Shock. If you void it, however, it's a Lightning Bolt. Now, Sorcery is a big downside. I think if this card was an instant, it would be one of the best burn spells printed, I don't even know, in a really long time. At Sorcery Speed, though, it is still quite good. When you're playing a red deck, things just die. You monster some spear attack, they kill it. All right, well, it's Bolt, So this card's great. I think this is a very high upside card. The fact that it goes face is great. This enters a standard format where it already has a good critical mass of burn spells, Bolt Wave and Burst Lightning and so on and so forth. But yeah, this card is very, very nice. Great card, great limited card, great constructed card. This card will definitely see play constructed. This is a great one. Really, really nice. We'll probably see red go back to being more of like a burn aggro deck than the kind of like combo pump spell deck it's been for the last year or so. And this will be part of the reason why. This card's great. Possibility Technician. 2 mana for a 3/3. This is a Kavu Artificer rare. Whenever this creature or another Kavu you control enters, exile a top card of your library. For as long as that card remains exiled, you may play it if you control a Kavu. So, 3/3 for 3, ETB, kind of draw card. It also has Warp. So, Warp for 2, and kind of you can draw a card off the Warp. If you have someone to give it haste, you're really doing it. But you get to exile a card, and then you can full cast it, exile a card again. It is a little awkward because of the timing restriction of the cast, but because it's not tied to must do it this turn until the end of your next turn, it's tied to Kavus, right? So I haven't done a full gatherer search on every Kavu in the format, but I do know Soulstone Sanctuary is a Kavu. So if I'm playing a red deck with 4 of these and 4 Soulstone Sanctuary, that card goes to exile. You might be able to use it 5 turns later, which is pretty sweet. So I think this card's pretty damn nice. I think that at just straight face value, this card is pretty sweet. But I think there's also a ton of cool synergy things happening with this card as well. Whether you're warping, hasting, Soulstone Sanctuary, whatever else it might be. This card seems great. This card is an absolute banger in limited, where there are tons of Kavus floating around. I think this card's got a good chance to be a cool grindy card constructed also. Hence why it's my sleeper card for red here. Possibility Technician. Next up is Red Tiger Mechan. 4 mana for a 3/3 haste with Warp 2. Again, we see another Warp card with haste. This one is also pretty sweet, Oh, I don't got a 2-drop? Take 3. Awesome. And then later on in the game, on turn 4, pop it in, more haste. Card's cool. It's also a robot. Pretty cool for double spell stuff as well. Not overtly powerful. We're past the days of Teleran Mauler and Volshock Berserker being good draft cards. Ow, my back. I got old, folks. But yeah, this card's sweet. This is a cool little draft common. Nothing super amazing, but good little card. Remnant Elemental. 2 mana for an 0/4 reach. Just your average red aggressive card. Has landfall +2/+0. This card's kind of nice, An 0/4 reach for 2 is not a bad body in limited. And this will almost always attack for 2. And then if you are doing the landfall lander thing, this thing attacks for 4 sometimes. Dope. And then you have in constructed, maybe you have some crazy synergy with returning 4 lands at once, give it trample, kind of in that Tifa space too. So yeah, I mean, this card's great. Pretty good body, pretty resilient as far as surviving removal spells, and then hits reasonably hard, blocks pretty well. This is a great limited card, and a card that I think that would have an outside shot at constructed if there is some sort of landfall aggro deck. Rig for War. 2 mana for an instant, +2/+0, first strike, and reach. Just your average, not so great limited combat trick. You can play it, but I would not be happy about it. Roving Actuator. 4 mana for a 3/4 uncommon. Has no text unless you void. But if you do void, you get to exile 1 target instant or sorcery card mana value 2 or less from your graveyard. You can copy it, and you can play the copy for free. So kind of like a big Snapcaster Mage. It does ask a lot of you, you need to have the ability to void, and then also actually have a good card in the graveyard, and then also have a good chance targeting. And say I have a shock in my graveyard, and they don't have any 2-drop or any 2-drop creatures, you know? So it's reasonably powerful, but it is somewhat finicky. So mid-level limited card, you know? Ruinous Rampage. Not quite Brotherhood's End, but, you know, the mana for a sorcery, deal 3 to each opponent, or exile all artifacts mana value 3 or less. Gonna be an important sideboard card. You know, Simulacrum Synthesizer is still around in Standard. There are some other artifact things floating around as well. The buyout here is not very good because this is probably going to be a sideboard card. You'll rarely be boarding it for 3 damage, but this is a reasonable sideboard card. You know, all the synthesizer players.
Hello, darkness,
I'm feeling for you. You know, it's tough out there, but yeah, mostly what it is, and not too much else. Maybe a sideboard card limited too, but Rust Harvester. 1 mana for an artifact creature robot. It's a 1/1 menace. 2 tap, exile an artifact card from your graveyard. Put a plus counter on this, and then it deals damage equal to its power to any target. So this is like the robot Grim Lavamancer. The fact that you need to specifically have an artifact card in your graveyard makes it a lot more challenging to use than Grim Lavamancer is, which only cares about any card. But it does scale. It gets bigger each time. If you have other ways to put counters on it, that's pretty cool too. The first activation is good, right? I mean, two mana, 2 damage. I now have a 2/2 menace. It's pretty cool. So this card's kind of sweet. I worry that there won't be a deck able to utilize it properly. But the rate is there. This is a good Magic card. In limited, great, bonkers, awesome card, phenomenal. But a card that I think will struggle a little bit to find a home in Constructed, and maybe better in older formats. You know, Mishra's Bauble, I don't know, whatever, Chromatic Star, whatever, you know, cards, artifacts that go to the graveyard pretty easily. So we'll see. Really cool card. Might be a cool cube card too, actually. Slag Drill Scrapper. 1 red for a 1/2 common robot scout. Pay to sacrifice another artifact or land. Draw a card. Kind of funny it can't sacrifice itself, but this card's like surprisingly a common. This can just sacrifice a land token and draw a card. That's pretty good, honestly. That's not bad. You know, 1/2 for 1's not amazing, but this is a cool little synergy piece. Kind of cool in red-green with lantern tokens. Cool in black-red. Triggers Void. Cool enabler. You know, not a super high pick or anything, but this is a pretty cool enabler. I like this card for limited. Constructed, probably not quite there. But this is cool. I like it. Systems Override. Dimana for a sorcery. It's a threaten. And if it's a spacecraft, you put 10 charge counters on it temporarily. So it makes it into a thing, and then it goes away. So the big thing here, of course, is this can fire up your own spacecraft for 1 shot. You could use this on obnoxiously costed spaceships to get that 1 big shot in. That being said, that's not very good. You know, but if you want to do some fun, you know, against the odds, whatever kind of stuff, sure. It is a threaten, so unlimited steal and sack stuff, you know, steal a thing, sack it to this thing, pretty cool. There are certainly enough sacrifice things in the set to where steal and sack might be a thing. But yeah, this card's, you know, threaten with upside, nothing too crazy, just a good limited card. Tanic Steadfast Second. 4 mana for a 3/5 Kavu pilot. Gives all your other creatures haste, and then gives all your artifact cards and red creature cards in your hand warp 3. I'm actually pretty damn high on this card. This card is, you know, would have gotten a sleeper award had the card I gave it to not gotten it. This card's pretty good. Like 3/5 for 4 gives all your stuff haste. That's not insanely powerful, but the floor is reasonable. Then if you get to untap and just like double warp into red overlords and go nuts, that's pretty cool. That's a pretty powerful effect. It's also artifacts as well. So, I mean, Blightsteel Colossus is in the format, right? Like,
Good lord. Gigantic.
But yeah, this card's pretty sweet. I like this card. It's a Kavu. It gives things haste. You know, the floor is reasonable. The ceiling's really, really high. And it kind of stinks it's only red creature cards. I feel like if it was any creature, it'd be infinitely better. But I can see some sort of like red-green, Smuggler Surprise, kind of big stuff deck, which is cool. So, yeah, but cool stuff. Really cool card. ridiculous limited card. Don't forget that when you warp a card, it's not like it just goes away. You know, it goes into the adventure zone. You can just play it again later. So warping is still really, really powerful. Sneak attack kind of thing. Yeah, cool. Great stuff. I think this card is going to be surprisingly good. Terminal Velocity. 6 mana for a sorcery. You put an artifact or creature card from your hand on the battlefield, and it gains haste. Whenever this permanent leaves the battlefield, it deals damage equal to its mana value to each creature, and end step, you sacrifice it. Kind of weird there's like so many of this effect already in Standard, like Smuggler's Surprise, Random Encounter, the card we literally just looked at. Like, but here's another one. So this thing puts in a red Overlord, attacks, trigger, or ETB trigger, attack trigger, and then end step deals 6 to everything. It's pretty powerful, but again, it requires you to have the card in your hand, similar to Smuggler's Surprise. A strategy that has not worked super well, but maybe there's a critical mass here. I don't know, but yeah. So pretty cool card. I think it is pretty powerful. I could see building some sort of like big red like sneak attack deck with this card and terminal velocity, maybe the red crystal kind of stuff. Your red Overlord. That'll probably be one of the 10 new brews. So make sure you look for that one. All right.
Here comes the money.
There you go. I know what's up. And then in limited, it's pretty powerful. It's kind of a cool sweeper, you know, like put in a 5/5, just attack and wrath. So I don't know, kind of a cool card. Pretty weird. It's kind of weird that like it feels very familiar, but very, very, very new too. Terror Pact Intimidator. 2 mana for a 2/1. When ETBs target opponent chooses, you get 2 lander tokens, or this gets 2 plus the most encounters. If this is a 2 mana 4/3 or a 2 mana 2/1 that makes 2 lander tokens, this card's nice.
Bingo!
Usually Punisher cards aren't the best, but both sides of this card are pretty damn good. You know, a 2/1 that makes 2 lander tokens is phenomenal. And then a 4/3 for 2 is also quite good too. In Constructed, if your opponent's playing a bunch of removal spells, like, yeah, whatever, 4/3, go for the throat next turn, you know, kind of thing, you know. I kind of wish this card was an outlaw for that reason, because go for the throat is gone, and now Shoot the Sheriff is like the next, you know, best one or whatever. But this card's cool. Phenomenal limited card. Constructed might not be good enough, but great limited card. Really fun card, too. I like the design here a lot. Good stuff. And it is also a Kavu, for all you Kavu fans. Territorial Bruntar. 6 mana for a 6/6. Beast with Reach. Has landfall. Exile cards top of your library to exile a non-land card. You may cast a card this turn. So landfall, draw a card, basically. Insane top-end card for limited. Love that it has reach, so you can help defend yourself the turn you cast it. If you untap with this card in limited and have a land in your hand, you're probably in really, really good shape. Good stuff. Good limited card, nothing more. Vault Guard Trooper. 5 mana for a 5/5. End step. If you control 2 or more tapped creatures, you may discard your hand. If you do, draw 2. Another phenomenal limited card in that red-white, you know, crew stationer kind of space. But, you know, empty-handed, play this thing, draw 2. Pretty nice. Buy's pretty good. So it's good. It's a good little curve topper in limited. Warmaker Gunship. Rare 3 mana spacecraft. When it enters, it deals damage equal to the number of artifacts you control to a creature an opponent controls. Has station, 6 or more. It is a 4/3 flyer. This card's good. Clearly, you need to have a lot of artifacts in play to make this card good. But if this is in that sort of chainsaw space where it's just like, play an artifact, kill a thing, play an artifact, kill a thing, play an artifact, kill a thing. Oh, I also have a synthesizer or some other artifact synergy. That's pretty good. And the crew cost of 6 here is not absurd. So I think this card's pretty good. Got a chance to Constructed if you're playing an heavy artifact deck. Great limited card. It's a rare. What do you expect? You know, it's a good card. Weapons Manufacturing. Really cool rare. 2 mana for an enchantment. Whenever a non-token artifact ETBs, make a colorless artifact token named Munitions that simply says, when this token leaves the battlefield, it deals 2 damage to anything, but doesn't innately do anything. It's just an artifact with at least playability, but you can't sacrifice it or whatever else. You need to do other things to make it good. But that's pretty powerful, you know? So now you get to double up on all your artifacts for affinity, for ETB effects, whatever else it might be. And then if you have sack outlets, you're shocking things left and right. And it's cheap. I think if this card costs 3, I'm not about it. But at 2 mana, it's cheap enough where you can kind of like play it early and get the thing done. This will definitely be at a 10 new brew for sure. And then in limited, this card needs a lot more work to get done, but still pretty powerful. I love the idea of this card asking a question that I definitely want to answer. I'm very, very interested. Love it. Really, really cool stuff. Torch the Tower and so on and so forth. So, really cool. I'm a big fan. So this is sweet. To make note though, for artifact decks, not only is that Brotherhood's End a thing, Ultima's also in the set too. So be aware of that. Wefstalker Ardent. Mana for a 2/3. Whenever another creature or artifact ETBs, this creature deals 1 damage to each opponent. It also has Warp 1 red. So, that's a pretty powerful card. You know, this is sort of like the Perforos, whatever, Impact Tremors kind of card. If this card was a goblin, oh my god, I wish it was a goblin. But still quite good. Being able to warp this in and then kind of go off and do your combo thing or whatever is kind of sweet as well. But yeah, cool card, phenomenal limited card, cool commander card too, actually. But I think it's a card that could see play constructed, although I'm not thrilled about it. It's a little too clunky, I think. Zookeeper Mechan. It's mana for a 1/3 Manador.
Inconceivable!
Yeah, Red's moving into Manador territory. We have no conditions here. Doesn't need to cast an artifact or something like that. We just have 1/3 Manador for 2 with a mana sink ability that can pump creatures. This is a really good draft comment, I don't have to tell you. I mean, Manador in red is great. 1/3 Manador's pretty good. It's an artifact for artifact stuff. Just a good draft card, you know? Constructed, probably not. I mean, honestly, I don't think it's crazy constructed. Like, a red Manador is a very unique thing we haven't really had before, and this could do some cool stuff, but I mean, probably not. But interesting to think about for sure. So recap, our best in show is Nova Hellkite for red. Our red sleeper card is Possibility Tactician. Pain for All is our trap card. And Oreplate Pangolin is our Bombin Common. Rea's up next, folks. Like, comment, subscribe, support the content, hit the follow button. A lot of work goes into these shows, and I hope you support as much as you possibly can. Every video, everything, hit the buttons. Please support the content. I love you all. Green's next. Let's do this.